We're the digital transformation team, and we're here to talk you through the new prescribing features that have been brought in with the recently updated version of EPMA. The latest updates bring a host of changes to the medication reconciliation function, or MedRec, and the options you have for completing one. The first change you'll notice is that now, when a new admission is started for a patient, a new reconciliation will be created automatically. Any existing reconciliation will be cleared, and the new one will begin. When creating your patient's meds on admission list, you're now able to see and select previous admission and discharge therapies from the last 6 months. The list is chronologically sorted, with the newest at the top and the oldest at the bottom. When you select a prescription from the previous admission, the source field will automatically change to Previous Admission. When you select a prescription from the previous discharge, the source will change to Previous Discharge. With the new update, you now have the ability to view previous reconciliation lists, which includes meds on admission, discharge medications, and discharge summaries. You can scroll through previous reconciliations using the left and right arrows at the top, and you can see the date each one was started. Please note that while you can view these lists, you're unable to edit, print, or review them. If you add a therapy to the meds on admission list, but have missed any information mandatory for making it an inpatient therapy, you'll now see a pop-up telling you exactly which information is missing. You're now able to create an empty meds on admission or discharge list. If a patient has no medication on admission, or doesn't require any meds on their discharge list, you can click Confirm at the bottom of the window and you'll see a pop-up double-checking there's nothing to add. Clicking Confirm again will create an empty list. If you're creating a meds on admission list after inpatient therapies have already been prescribed, you can now add those inpatient prescriptions to the admission list directly from the reconciliation screen. All active therapies, including those that have been stopped or suspended, are shown under Inpatient Therapies on the admission window. Stop prescriptions, including single-dose prescriptions, are visible for 24 hours. If an inpatient therapy has already been added to the meds on admission list, it will be greyed out to avoid adding the same therapy twice. You can copy a therapy without making any changes, or you can edit it before adding it. The source field will automatically set to From Inpatient, but you can change this information by editing the prescription. If you need to make any changes at this point, you won't be asked to provide a change reason, but you're still able to provide one if you want to highlight the difference between admission and discharge therapies and why the changes were made. You cannot change or add the already active inpatient therapy when you continue from admission to inpatient, so therefore none of the buttons are visible. You'll have to add it instead on the medication administration record. If the meds on admission list was created after any inpatient therapies have been prescribed, you can now link existing inpatient prescriptions to the admission ones. To do this, go to the MAR, select the 3-bar menu on the prescription you want to link, and select Link to Admission Therapy. You'll be able to select the prescription from the therapies on the admission list which contain the same medication ingredients. You'll then be prompted to enter a change reason and comment. If you want to unlink a therapy, you can select Unlink from Admission on the 3-bar menu. The meds on admission list can be built from a variety of sources and often includes details of strength and formulation, and sometimes the brand. With the new update, you're now able to convert medication to just the generic name of the drug when adding it from the admissions list to the inpatient therapy list, and you can do this by using the new Convert to Drug button. When prescribed as an inpatient therapy, even if medication has been converted to generic name only, it will still be linked to the admissions therapy. Please note that conversion will not be possible if medication is already at the generic only level, if it can't be ordered with generic information only, if the dosage units for the prescription on the meds on admission list don't match those of the generic level, or if the prescription has multiple medications. Just like linking inpatient therapies to meds on admission, you can now also link discharge medications to admission medications. This might be used in scenarios where you've created a prescription with just the generic name, but have had to change it to include the strength and formulation on discharge. You can link medications by right-clicking the discharge therapy and selecting Link to Admission Therapy. You can also mark discharge medication as unchanged from admission. This can be done if, for example, you are unable to enter all necessary prescription information on admission, but then completed it during the patient's stay or on their discharge. As this would still count as the same prescription, they can be marked as unchanged from admission. You can do this by right-clicking the discharge medication and selecting Mark Discharge Therapy as unchanged from admission. If you want to undo this, you can right-click again and select Undo Marking Therapy as unchanged from admission, or Unlink from admission therapy. When creating a discharge prescription, you can select who will be responsible for the medication after discharge, for example the GP or the hospital. If you add a prescription to the discharge meds without editing it, the system will automatically select the first option in the To Continue field. The most common way of prescribing single administration medications prior to this update was to use the stat dose option on the prescription form. This is now changed to a single dose option. Replacing the stat dose with a single dose on the prescription form allows you to prescribe a drug with a single administration, whether in the past, now, or in the future. Single doses will remain visible on the MAR in the list of active medicines for 24 hours for completed doses and 7 days for doses not completed. You will still be able to record the administration of a single dose directly from the prescription form by clicking the Record Administration checkbox. Prescribers will be able to edit a single-dose prescription regardless of the administration status. To do this, click on the 3-bar menu on the medication on the MAR and select Edit Therapy. As a single dose is intended to be used only as a single administration, you'll not be able to record and schedule additional administrations from here. The recorded administration will appear on the MAR chart as already given, and the prescription will be grayed out. You can select whether the patient is pregnant and/or breastfeeding under Reference Observations. The status must be updated with each hospitalization. Pregnant and breastfeeding statuses are displayed in the patient data bar and on the printouts of the medication administration record. You can now schedule reminders to review patient reference observation measurements. You can do this through the Reference Observations window by ticking the Reminder checkbox and specifying how many days you want to pass before being reminded to review again. A Review Observations icon will appear in the patient data bar. You can review the patient's data or dismiss the reminder by clicking on this icon. Please note that if you dismiss the reminder, you'll be prompted to review again next time you or another user access this patient's record. Observations must be reviewed to resolve the reminder. Overweight patients can be at risk of medication overdosing since doses are calculated based on total body weight. In some cases, it's more appropriate to use the patient's ideal body weight, and there are now additional functionalities for you to use. You can now define a patient's weight as actual or estimated when you update their reference observations. This information is then displayed in the patient data bar and on prescribing windows. The system will automatically calculate the patient's ideal body weight based on their height and gender. This information will be displayed on the reference observations and prescribing window. If the patient's height or gender have not been recorded, then the system will not calculate the ideal weight. When prescribing based on weight, you can now choose between actual or estimated body weight or ideal body weight. To automatically calculate dosage based on ideal body weight, you can click the Dose Calculator button for appropriate medications. Clicking the Use IBW checkbox underneath will ensure that any variables and protocols attached to the prescription will automatically use ideal body weight. When prescribing medication, you can now add custom administration instructions. The new administration instruction details can be found in the Add Instructions and Reminders section on the prescribing window. Administration instructions are displayed on the prescription card. They're also visible when opening an administration event for the prescription. This functionality enables clinical staff to confirm if they have checked the additional instructions and have taken them into account when administering the medication. Marking of admin instructions is mandatory, and they can be marked as yes, no, or not checked. You now have more options for linking infusions. Prescribers can now link a single dose infusion with a continuous infusion. There's no limit to how many infusions can be linked together. For one infusion to be linked to another, the prescription should be either a single dose or continuous with duration. The final linked infusion to be administered doesn't have this restriction, so it can be of any type. When prescribing low-frequency medications, you can now indicate a specific day in the month for the medication to be administered. You can do this by clicking the Chosen Days button and selecting the day the medication is to be administered. If you select the 29th, 30th, or 31st, you'll be alerted that if the month has fewer days, the administration date will be treated as the last day of that month. Previously, there was not a clear view of previous and next planned administrations when prescribing medications with intervals of every 2 or more days. Additional visual cues have been added to the timeline, which show details about the administration's date, time, and status. The statuses are different for previous and future administration events. The status for previous events represents which action was taken on them and when, for example, given early or late, cancelled or deferred. The status for future events shows when the next planned administration will be. You can interact with these visual cues just like you would with administration events. By left-clicking on them, you can record the administration, see administration details, and access the audit trail if the dose has already been given. Right-clicking the visual cues will open different menus or windows depending on the status of the administration. For example, if it's a previously recorded dose, right-clicking the cue allows you to edit or cancel the administration. In this way, you can now make changes to administrations by interacting with visual cues, even though the administration event is not present on the timeline. Dosing intervals are defined for some specific medications, for example fentanyl patches, which will be defined as every 3 days. If anyone prescribes one of these medications with a frequency other than what has been specified, the system will display a high severity warning with override requirement in the warning section. This will notify users that the given frequency is not the one that should be used. The warning will show once the prescription has been added to the therapy list. With this new update, the Trust will also be able to apply a hard stop for certain medications, which cannot be overridden. You can now access an overview of all recorded and next planned administrations for a prescription. You can view the administration's overview in a number of ways. You can right-click a visual cue, you can right-click an administration event, or you can left-click the prescription card. Whichever option you choose, you can select Administration's Overview to view the information you need. The Administration's Overview includes information about planned and recorded administrations. You can see details about each administration's date, time, and task status. You can see all administration events, either recorded or not, and if there are any that don't fit in the window, you can click Show More to view them. You can jump to the top or bottom of the screen wherever the scroll bar appears by clicking on the visual cues, such as More items are hidden below and More items are hidden above. Under Planned Administrations, you can view all unrecorded administration events, even if they are in the past. But as always, users are advised to record all administration events in real time. For prescriptions with intravenous or intramuscular routes of administration, clinical staff will now be able to select a site of administration from the drop-down menu in the administration window. When the administration is being recorded, clinical staff will be able to see the last recorded site of administration, as well as information about the administration site in Administration Details. The one-day PDF report of the medication administration record has also had some updates. Stopped and suspended prescriptions are now clearly marked. PRN prescriptions are more clearly distinguished from regular prescriptions. And administration times are displayed for prescriptions with varying dosing intervals.